Hey, how you doing? My name is Kevin Ellis. I am the local president of 2338 at the John J. Pershing VA Medical Center in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. First, I want to apologize to the viewing audience just momentarily. A couple of weeks ago, I had oral surgery, and I got these temporary braces or plates or whatever you want to call them in the top of my mouth, and they are impacting my articulation of my speech a little bit. It's going to be off for about the next 3 to 4 months, and then sometime about May or June, they're going to take up the plates out, and things are going to go back to normal. But for the time being, my speech is going to be impacted just a tad bit, so bear with me. But I thought it was relevant to have this conversation with you about what's happening in our country right now today. Okay? I'm going to move this out of the way because I didn't intend on that being in the way and the mouse pad. Kind of give us a little cleaner table. One of the worst things in the world that can happen to people is to be conned and swindled and tricked, manipulated, bamboozled, hoodwinked, whatever you want to call it. That is the worst place that you can ever be. Now, some of the people I'm going to talk about have been hoodwinked, they have been manipulated, they've been lied to, and they've been conned. And some of those people have not been manipulated, they've not been conned, they've not been tricked, they've just been racist and haters all their life. And a con man came along and pulled the scab off of a wound that is now oozing with hatred, racism, bitterness, and division. Because underneath the scab, or underneath that layer, was racism and hatred. Why was it underneath the skin? Because in today's society, they don't wear white hoods anymore. They don't wear white sheets with holes cut out. They could discriminate and hate you right in front of your face, but doing it behind your back. Okay? So some of the people I'm going to talk about today have been conned. If the con part doesn't fit you, then you are the other part that believes in the racism and the hatred. But let's dig into it, okay? Con man Trump is Donald Trump. He fits the description of a con man. It is an accurate description of a con man. Why? Because he's been a con man all of his life. He is a professional con man or a professional con artist. Okay? Con man Trump are experts at deception and use their skills to cheat people out of their money and their power. That's what con men do, or con people. They cheat you out of your money and out of your power. And before you know it, you've been hoodwinked. Your money's gone, your savings gone, and you are no better off today than you were before the con man came into your life, but under the surface, you're a lot worse off, and you don't even realize it. They often lie, con men often lie, cheat, and fool people into thinking they just happen to run into this great deal or some easy way to make money, when in fact, they're the ones, the con artists, are the ones who will be making the money. It's not the everyday Joe. It's not the everyday person. The con man is getting the money. Look at it today. People are donating and giving $5 and $10 and $20 a paycheck a month $100, $500, $5,000 to a con man. To a con man. Out of all people, a con man. Think about it. They take advantage of your weaknesses, such as you feel lonely. Nobody cares about me. I'm insignificant. They play on your insecurities. Well, if that colored person gets the job before me, then that's bad. Or if the minority gets a job before me, that's bad. Or if the immigrant gets a job that I don't want to do, that's bad for me. That's how they think. They're insecure about who they are. So the best way to support their insecurities is trying to put that thumb on everybody else. That's what Trump does. Why? He's a con artist. That's what con artists do. Okay? They take advantage of poor health. And they take advantage of simple ignorance. Now I want to talk about two things here real quick. Donald Trump said himself, and I think it was in the Oprah Winfrey video years ago, and he said, if I would ever run as president, I would run as a Republican, because he said, with his own words, I can tell them anything and they'll believe it. Those were Donald Trump's words. Why? They were the words of a con man. He told you 20-some years ago, or 30-some years ago, he was a con artist. You just didn't catch it. He told you who he was all of his life. Only one who didn't know was you. So the joke's not on him, the con man. The joke's really on you. Because you allowed him to con you even after he told you he was going to do it. He told you, if I ran as president, I wouldn't run as an independent. That's smart thinkers. I wouldn't run as Democrats. They're compassionate people and inclusive. I'd run as a Republican. Because I can tell them anything and they'll believe it. Those were his words. Poor health. Do you guys remember when they passed the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare? And all these Republicans and ran across the country talking about death panels. And a death panel is going to determine whether grandma lives or grandpa lives. Remember Sarah Palin? We got to get rid of this Obamacare. Death panels. Get the government out of health care. There was no death panels. There never has been death panels. But because the Republicans played on your loneliness, your insecurity, your poor health, or simple ignorance, a large part of the country thought Obamacare was death panels, a government takeover of health care. Excuse me, Medicare and Medicaid has been around for years. It never overtook any type of health care. But it has benefited millions and millions of people. The Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, has benefited millions and millions of people. Why? Because the people who passed Medicare and Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare, they were not con men. They were not. They were compassionate people who believed that health is a right that everybody should be entitled to. But not a con man. A con man thinks otherwise. We're going to get to it. Hang tight. Con men can be very charming. They can be persuasive and even make you believe they are really an old friend you haven't seen in years. Donald Trump makes the Republicans and Republicans sound like a friend they hadn't seen in many years. He kind of wakes up the ghosts of the Civil War, of the South, of the Nazis. That's what a con man does. That's what Putin did. That's what Hitler did. That's what Assad did in Syria. That's what the North Korean president did, or leader, whatever you want to call him, dictator. That's what they did. They all did the same thing. Con man Trump is no different. Okay? Keep that in mind. Despite what you may think, they aren't always shady looking characters. A con artist is an expert at looking however they need to fit the moment. If the con involves banking or investments, the con artist will often wear a snappy looking suit. You've been watching Donald Trump. You've been watching Donald Trump all your life. And all his life, he's worn suits and ties and talked big business, while at the same time filing bankruptcy after bankruptcy after bankruptcy because he was a failure and he was a loser. The only reason he has this money now is because he couldn't con any more U.S. banks into giving him money. They caught on to his con. He got the money to support his businesses from Russia and foreign governments who saw a man begging on his knees, needing help. And they found the perfect person to try to help overthrow democracy and the United States of America, because they found a con man who believed in sex, money, and power. Con man. Okay? Con man, and this part really tripped me out. Con man exhibit three similar characteristics. One, they're psychopath. Two, they're narcissist. And three, they're Machiavellian. That word Machiavellian made me go back and do some research on it. Like, what do you mean by Machiavellian? When you find a definition of it, Machiavellian means somebody that's cunning, deceitful, manipulative in all their ways. That's con man Trump. He's worn suits and ties all of his life to look the part. Why? It's all a facade. Facade. He's a con man. Now, these characteristics right here allows the con man to swindle people out of that money without feeling any remorse or guilt. Okay? Here's the perfect example. People that lied for him with the big lie, the election was stolen, are facing prison time. He didn't give them any money to pay their bills. He didn't give them any money to pay their legal fees. He didn't give them any money to help keep them from going to jail. Why? Because he has no remorse and no guilt. Donald Trump could care less, or con man Trump could care less if you drain your bank account, lose your house, lose your car, can't feed your family. He could care less. Why? He has no remorse and no guilt. Con man Trump has swindled and is swindling millions of dollars from the general public. Why? Because that's what con men do. It's simple. There's no other way to look at it. It's very simple. Okay? A con man will tell you who they are before they do it. We'll get to that in a moment. But they tell you who they are and what they're about before they even do it. Remember, when a con man is talking, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Remember when con man Trump said he was going to drain the swamp? And all the other people in Washington, D.C. was the swamp. The fact is, D.C. wasn't the swamp. The swamp has always been Donald Trump. Con man Trump, or CMT, is the swamp. And con men are able to be here because they have enablers. And part of being enablers is they defect or deflect by blaming other people to cover up themselves. Perfect example. You heard Donald Trump talk about Hillary Clinton. Oh, the crooked Hillary Clinton. How crooked she was and all this stuff that she did wrong. And Hillary Clinton did more for women and children than Donald Trump would ever do in 3 of his lifetimes. Why? Con men, Trump, don't mind taking all of your money and swindling it from you without you getting anything in return. That's just the reality, how it is, okay? But they would deflect and take attention away from their cons by pushing the blame to somebody else or pointing the finger at somebody else. That's what he did. Con man Trump conned people into signing contracts for his businesses to build the buildings and the statues and the brick and mortar. And after they built it, he reneged on the contracts. Why? Because he conned people into thinking they were doing business with the businessman, and all he was a con man. Okay? He conned people into believing that he had a great university that taught people how to become a millionaire. Trump University was a fraud. And it's always been a fraud. But as long as the con man got their money, he didn't care whether they went bankrupt or not, buying into his con. He could care less. Why? Because he's a con. All right? He conned people into believing that after he became president, he would be a model president. Hell, Trump can even be a model man or a model citizen. How the hell are you going to be a model president, given power and authority, and you can't even be a model man and be a neighbor, be a friend to your next door neighbor, without trying to find a way of dwindling them out of their money, their property, or their inheritance, or seeing them as only a ching-ching, a money source. Okay? Here's something else that's important. Con man, Trump, the scripture says that the devil can even fool the elect of Christ, the Christians. Con man Trump conned people into believing he was a Christian and a conservative. But he's neither. Trump don't know the front of the Bible from the back of the Bible. He don't know if Genesis is in the front of the book, the middle of the book, or the back of the book. And he don't know whether Revelations is in the back of the book, middle of the book, or front of the book. Why? Because he's a con artist. Whenever someone asks him to give me your favorite quote in the Bible, or talk about scripture, the con man reverted to deflecting. Oh no, that's so private. I don't want to talk about that. That's private to me and just me and myself only. And you know, I really believe in the Bible, but I just want to keep that stuff private to myself. What he said is, what the hell are you asking me about the Bible for? I don't know anything about the Bible. He deflected. Why? Because he's a con man. Now, here's the one thing you need to know about a con man. They are very good at bringing enablers along with them. Right now, There's no difference between a con man and little Ron DeSantis, con man and halfway Nikki Haley, con man and Jim Jordan, con man and Mike Johnson, con man and Marjorie Taylor Greene, con man and Lindsey Graham, con man Ted Cruz. There's no difference between those people. They all said the same thing. Here's what they said. That if they would be elected as president, they would pardon con man Trump. They would pardon con man Trump to continue reaping more havoc and division and hatred throughout the country. That's what they said. They would pardon a criminal. Well, if you're going to pardon a criminal, why not go out there and pardon every convicted serial killer from the past 50 years? Pardon them. Pardon every convicted murderer for the past 50 years. Pardon them. Not the dead ones. Pardon them. Pardon every white-collar crime that's been committed. Pardon them. Because if you're willing to pardon con man Trump for being a criminal, to treat everybody fair and equal, you need to pardon everybody else in the country, like you did Steve Bannon, convicted criminal, Roger Stone, convicted criminal, Michael Flynn, convicted criminal. Pardon them, just like you pardon them. Pardon every other murderer and serial killer, like you did Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, and Michael Flynn. That would be equal, wouldn't it? The reason why they don't pardon the rapist, the murderer, the serial killer, is there's nothing in it for the con man. If you pardon those people, they can't vote for you. They can't give you any money. They can't boost you in power. Think about it. Okay? Now, little Ron and halfway Haley agreed to pardon Trump. Now, you have to ask yourself, why? Little Ron has little man syndrome. He's probably only 5'6", 5'7", not a tall man, short in stature. Donald Trump says he has small hands. Oftentimes, short men talk big, talk tough, and drive big vehicles. That's what they do. Halfway Haley sways under pressure. I mean, how can you say that you took down the Confederate flag in South Carolina? You didn't take down the Confederate flag in South Carolina. The events that happened at the Emmanuel Church is what took down the Confederate flag. The young man that went in there and shot all them African Americans and said he wanted to start a race war. That's what brought down the flag. Nikki Haley didn't go to the citizens and the Congress of South Carolina and say, hey, you know what, guys, after all this time, let's take down the Confederate flag. No, that's not what she did. It was the outcry of the entire country and the world that saw South Carolina as a racist, Confederate, hatred symbol of the Confederate flag. That's what took the flag down, not Nikki Haley. But she goes on, she boasts and talk about it as if she did some great thing. She didn't do anything. She simply swayed under pressure. Okay? And she's deceptive in her conversations. She would say something like, oh, January 6th was a terrible day. People died. It should have never happened, and I want to move on from it. But I'm going to pardon Trump. Well, policemen got killed. Fathers got killed. They didn't go back home. But you're willing to pardon the person that incited the riot and the Capitol attack on January 6th, you want to pardon them, but you said it was a bad day. It can't be both. And that's what I mean by halfway Haley. She speaks out of one side of her mouth and says what she needs to this group of people, and then speaks out of this side of her mouth and says what she needs to for these people. She's halfway between a lie and a bigger lie. That's why I call her halfway Haley, because she's got no foundation. And she's been that way for the past 30 years. Go back and research her. Look at her own writings. She's been that way for the past 30, 40 years. She ain't changed. Okay? So in other words, Little Ron and halfway Haley agrees 100% with con man Trump, the con artist. They believe in him 100%. And if you believe in a con artist that's willing to kill people to have power, steal their money to have power, they're narcissists, they're Machiavellian, and they're psychopaths, then you have to be one and the same. You have to be. There's no daylight between you. In other words, Lil Ron and Haley says, hey, they agreed with the Capitol Police being murdered on January 6th. Why? Because they said, I agreed to pardon Trump. They said, hey, I agree with the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. The violence. Why? Because they agreed to pardon Trump. In other words, they agree with all of the violence that took place, the pepper sprays, beating the policemen with the flagpole, beating them with sticks, beating them with poles and rods, and just all kind of crazy stuff. They agree with that. Why? Because they are willing to pardon the person that started it all. Okay? The election in 2020 was no more stolen than the Iowa caucus in 2016. Donald Trump, after he lost the Iowa caucus in 2016, the very next words out of his mouth was, Ted Cruz stole the Iowa caucus. The first words out of his mouth. Not, I want to give a congratulations to Ted Cruz. He ran a good campaign. He won the Iowa caucus, but we're going to keep fighting on. No. The first words out of Trump's mouth in 2016 was Ted Cruz stole the Iowa caucus. He told you in 2016 he was a loser. He told you in 2016 that he doesn't take defeat very well. I can imagine that when he was a kid and his mother told him he did something wrong, that he laid on the ground and rolled over and cried like a baby. I can see it now. Why? Because he's a con man. Anytime a con man is willing to sue his own family out of their inheritance money from their parents, if you think they wouldn't steal from you after stealing from their own family inheritance money from the dead relatives of the dead parents, if they would steal from them, what in the hell make you think they won't steal from you? Why? Do you not feel that way? Because con man has a way of persuading you and tricking you into giving up all you have based on a lie. Let's keep it moving, okay? If you're going to pardon Trump, here's the question that I want somebody to ask Little Ron and halfway Haley. Ask Sununu. Ask Lindsey Graham. Ask Jim Jordan. Ask the Comer guy. Ask Mike Johnson. Ask Marjorie Taylor Greene. If the events on January the 6th would have killed your family member, would have killed your husband, would have killed your wife, would have killed your daughter or your son, if your daughter or your son would have been a Capitol policeman and they got murdered on that day, or any of your children, would you feel the same way and pardon con man Trump if what he caused to happen on January the 6th would have resulted in the death of your spouse, your husband or your wife, your son or your daughter? Would you feel the same way? I can tell you what, we would like to hear an answer to that question from Little Ron, Halfway Haley, Lindsey Graham, and everybody else, the Republicans, not cans, cons, that's supporting. I would like to hear an answer to that. Wouldn't you? Now, Little Ron and Halfway Haley say they agree with Trump policy. Let's look at them policies they say they agree with. What are some of Trump's policies? Let's look at some of them. Trump has a policy of racism. Okay? Trump has a policy of hatred. Trump has a policy of discrimination. Now, for Little Ron and Halfway Haley and Lindsey Graham, which of them policies is it that you agree with, that you support from Trump? Because he only passed one bill when he was president, and that was a tax cut for the rich. He didn't have no other policies. His policies was his mouth, racism, and his actions, racism, hatred, and discrimination. Those were his policies. He had a policy of attacking private sector unions. Ask the people that work for him. Okay? Don't take my word for it. Ask some of them workers who couldn't get unionized, couldn't get protections against being bullied and harassed. Ask some of them. He had a policy of attacking federal unions. I'm a union president in the federal government, in the VA. And he attacked every federal union in the United States of America. He attacked all of us, from the VA to the Transportation Department, to Social Security, to the Forestry Service. He attacked every last one of us. Why? Because he hates unions. Trump had the policy of retribution and revenge. Yeah, those are policies that he believed in. Retribution and revenge. Now, Haley and Lil Ron and Republicans, what part of them policies do you agree with? Oh, you agree with all of them. Got it. Okay? Some other policies he believed in. Stealing elections and being a loser. Anytime you support somebody who tried to steal an election and told you they were going to try to steal an election, he told you that before the election even happened. He was going to steal it. Roger Stone, Rudy Giuliani has said before they even lost the election, we're going to start saying we won it even before we lost it. And after it's been proved that we lost it, we're going to still keep saying we won. Why? That was the plan. Why? That's what con men do. Okay? Trump has the policy of rape. He's dealing with it right now in court. Nobody did that to him. He did it to himself. But he wants to blame everybody else. But guess who's paying them legal fees? Those of you that's sending him money. He ain't got nothing to worry about. Because as long as he keep conning you, you're going to keep paying him. He has a policy of division. That's Trump. Con man Trump has a policy of degrading our FBI, degrading our Department of Justice, and degrading our intelligence services. Why? That's what autocrats and con men do. Con man Trump has convinced the Republicans that the whole federal government is all broke. It's funny. You hadn't been broke for 100 years. You hadn't been broke for none of Trump's lifetime. But all of a sudden, a 72-year-old homophobic, racist, hatred-filled person comes along, and because they can't stand to lose on a national stage, now all of a sudden, everything's illegal. Everything's broken. We've been doing elections for hundreds of years. Yeah, let that sink in for a moment. Okay? Trump has a policy of autocracy, autocrat. He want to be like Putin. He want to be like the North Korean leader. He wants to smash you. Retribution, revenge, if you don't think like he do. That's con man Trump. He has a policy of threats. Remember? Go to his rallies. Punch him in the mouth. Throw him in jail. Beat him up. Get him out of here. Violence. Lil Ron, Halfway Haley, and the Republican, not Republican, believes in and supports all of those policies. There's no difference between the Republicans and Trump. Now, what's the difference between a Republican and a Republican? I'm glad you asked. Republicans believe in truth, integrity, nonviolence, and protecting rights, and they are somewhat inclusive. I don't agree with Liz Cheney. I don't agree with Michael Steele. I don't always agree with Adam Kinzinger. I don't agree with George Bush or Dick Cheney or Condoleezza Rice or Colin Powell or Adam Kinzinger on their policies. And I can disagree with them. And they can disagree with me. And guess what? Just because we disagree, they don't resort to violence. They don't start saying we're going to go after women's rights or equal rights or voting rights because we disagree. We disagree and we move on. That's a Republican. Republicans like George Bush, Colin Powell, Dick Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Condoleezza Rice would not and did not participate with January 6th. They did not. Why? Because they believed in truth, honor, integrity, and nonviolence. They didn't, that's why they didn't participate. The Republicans, on the other hand, do not believe in truth, do not believe in integrity, do not believe in nonviolence, and do not believe in equal rights. That's Republicans. Republicans, C-O-N, con man Trump, Republican, con man Trump, believe in conspiracy theories. The aliens voted in the election. They flew in ballots from Mars. Yeah. Conspiracy theorists. Yeah. Those are Republicans. They believe in alternative facts and lying until they faced with criminal prosecution, like the Georgia 19, Rudy Giuliani, Michael Flynn. Yeah, they lie until they hit court. And in court, either you tell the truth or you go to jail. Very quickly, they started flipping. Yeah, okay? They believe in overturning, the Republicans believe in overturning democracy. Yep, for power. They also believe in denying women's rights. They believe in denying voting rights. They believe in denying union rights. They believe in denying safety rights. They believe in denying young people rights. They believe in denying climate change rights. They believe in denying LGBT rights. They believe in denying minority rights. And they believe in denying equal rights. It don't get no more self-explanatory than that, guys. That's it in a nutshell. Therefore, Republican versus Republican. There's no daylight or difference between Little Ron, Halfway Haley, and the Republicans. Remember when we started? I said you got two types of people. You got the Republicans that are your Marjorie Taylor Greens and your Mike Johnsons and your just crazy people, conspiracy theorists. And then you got your Republicans, some of them that were racist, under the scab, and they're not Republicans. They won't come out that far and expose who they truly are. But they say is, oh, I don't agree with his demeanor, but I like his policies. You're no different than the Republicans. Because if you support racism, if you support hatred, if you support women being raped, if you support POWs being made fun of, if you support the military being degraded, if you support attacking private unions, attacking private sector unions, if you believe in everything that's negative about anyone and anybody, you've been hoodwinked, some of you, and the rest of you are just showing your true colors. Period. There's no other way to put it. And I can look at you and tell whether you're a Republican. The difference between the Republican and the Republican is this. 50 years ago, the Republicans wore white hoods and sheets and masks. That's what they wore. Today, the Republicans took off the hoods and the white sheets and they just say it out in the open. While some of those that wore the white sheets and the hoods don't want it to be known in the open, they just do it and say it behind your back. So like the OJ son, smiling in your face, but all the time stabbing you in the back. Now, you don't have to believe nothing I'm telling you. You don't have to. Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes the truth is a bitter pill. And the fact that you don't believe reality doesn't make it true. It simply means you've been conned or you believe in alternative facts. Pretty simple. There's no other way. Now I'm going to do a series of these videos over the next several months. I think it's important. No, I'm a veteran. And regardless of me not agreeing with George W. Bush, one, when he got elected, I didn't agree with George Bush number 2 when he got elected. I didn't agree with Trump when he got elected. But guess what I did not do? As a United States veteran that swore to uphold the Constitution, you didn't see me up at the Capitol, beating on Capitol Police, breaking the glass, killing Capitol cops, spraying them with pepper spray, hitting them with fire extinguishers, hitting them with flagpoles. No. If you are a veteran and we swore to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that means that even if I did not agree with the results of the election, I didn't call it phony. I didn't say it was rigged. I didn't say it was stolen. I disagreed and I moved on. Why? Because in a democracy, you don't solve your differences by threatening people or insinuating that your followers threaten people. That's a true American. That's a true patriot. Have a good evening, and God bless you.